Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dr. Phil, and we are on the New Start, Shaping Your New Start Education podcast. And I am very excited to be with you. I'm very excited to be with you today. I have a special guest, very special guest, and you want to hear what he has to say. So after this little break, listen, this is Shaping Your New Start Education Podcast. We want you to share this out to everyone, everywhere. Check it out. Subscribe to our YouTube page, Shaping Your New Start. And here we'll start. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the Shaping Your New Start Education podcast, and I am excited to be with just an amazing principal. Been at the same school for the last 17 years, straight from the Bronx. Listen, everybody, I want you to welcome Mr. Luis Torres. Yes, sir. How are you doing, sir?
Everything's great, brother. Everything's great. Now that I'm here, I feel even better. I got some energy. Got some energy back.
Yeah, I'm telling you, because the day can wear you out. The day can wear you out. What has it been like, a principal in these days? Are you virtual today? Are you in person?
We're 100% in person. We're battling the pandemic, and we're going to continue to push forward. We know the value of having the children in person, so we're completely open right now.
Excellent. That's what's up. Listen, I saw a TED talk with you on there, and you gave a powerful, strong testimony about your life, how you started, and how you overcame the odds. I just want the people to know a little bit more about you. How did you start? How did you get to this point of being a super educator?
Well, I've been in education pretty much all my life. I before I became a teacher, I was working in a college, and as a student in college, I was teaching and mentoring and tutoring people. And then I went into education, and before you know it, I became a school leader. I just wanted to have a greater impact on a greater community. You know.
That's great. You overcame some of the odds, and you wanted to make sure that some of the students coming up today, some of our scholars coming up today, are not at a disadvantage, but under your leadership, they have an advantage. How do you go about doing that, and what really started that passion in your past?
So for me growing up, I just want to see because my name is kind of spelled wrong. I spelled my name wrong on this thing. Hold on.
Oh yeah, no, don't worry, I got you. We can
I got it. I did it.
you
My
got it.
bad.
Okay.
That was my error. Yeah. I grew up in a very challenging community. Many of my friends either went to jail or killed. Pretty much. It was survival for the fittest. And I grew up around graffiti and hip hop and art. And I learned about art because every time one of my friends would be killed, they would paint the mural on the wall. And that's how I was exposed to the arts growing up. And I became an artist, and no one knew I was an artist. So long story short, I get to high school. I'm an amazing artist, but nobody ever knew that. It came time for me to graduate. My school counselor, back then they called him guidance counselor, pulls me into her office and says, you're not going to be successful in college. You need to go into the military. She didn't
Mm,
even know who I was. She didn't know I had an art background. She didn't know nothing about me, but she recommended for me to go into the military. And, as a young Puerto Rican kid in the Bronx, I did what my guidance counselor told me to do. And, I regret it every day, but I also use it as my motivation. She was the greatest motivational speaker I ever met in my life
mm,
because she made me realize that, you know, when somebody tells you you can't do something, then you need to prove them wrong.
right.
So, I came back from the military and I earned 5 degrees.
Wow. Wow. Wow, that's powerful. I mean, going from being, left behind, going from being told you can't do much to accomplishing so much, overcoming the odds. And that's a powerful story in itself, and I think a lot more youth need to know that. It's not necessarily about what they're being told, it's what they tell themselves. And we as leaders, we have this opportunity to pour into them and tell them, no, 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 you're bigger than that, you're better than that. In fact, you talked about the graffitis. I remember my cousin, he was a graffiti artist in LA in the 80s, and he came to New York City and made us walk around all of New York City, the Bronx, Manhattan, just to check out all the graffiti, just to take pictures and everything. So I can remember that time. He was just into that. So I get it. Listen, I respect. One of the things I look at graffiti, I'm like, how did they get up there? Like, that's
The
one of the
train.
biggest questions.
Yeah, I say, they get on the trains and everywhere, but we have to understand that we're leaders, right? And people are looking to us for guidance and support. And if we're the ones telling people that they can't do this or they can't do that, we're discouraging and we're directing our people in the wrong direction.
That's
And that's the real reason why I got into education is to make sure that young men and women like myself are not being directed in the wrong direction. No one should ever tell us what we can and cannot do in life.
yeah. That's great, man. So what do you implement as it within the structure? I know you have a structure to go by, with testing and all of these things, but what do you implement within the structure that brings you freedom to teach them beyond the classroom?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the people that don't believe in the state exams, and I'm not afraid to say that. Exams to me are supposed to be used for growth and not to be used to categorize or to hold people down. And a few years ago, I learned a valuable lesson. I would say about 8 years ago, I was named Outstanding Educator for the country by ASCD.
Yes.
Obama was president, and you know they had named me Outstanding Young Educator, and that same year they were labeling my school failing. So how is it
Mm,
that I could be the outstanding young educator, but my school gets labeled failing? And it
right.
was based on state exams. And so I pushed my school forward, and we were able to get off the failing list. But you know what happens whenever you show success, right? They take the money away. So we showed success, they took the money away, and then the school, everything that we put in place to get the school to be successful, started to disappear, and then the school fell back onto the failing list. So I learned my lesson from that. I said, you know what? I can't be dependent on state funding no more. I need to figure out how to use my hustling skills and my ability to beg to make sure that I never am dependent on school funding anymore. I need to make sure that the funds that I get for the school are to pay for people, and that everything else that I need to be successful, I will make sure that I go out and hustle and get those resources elsewhere. So a lot of my work is around community building and collaboration and developing partnerships, and just using the hustle game. And I mean it in a positive way, right? There's different types of hustle. When you're hustling for children, it's positive, right? And when you're begging for children, it's also positive as well, because you're not doing it for yourself. So you got to be out there, meeting people. If you need technology for the school, don't use the funds from the school for the technology. There are many ways to get money for technology. You know, if you need an art teacher, don't use the school funds for an art teacher. There are many organizations that are willing to pay for art programs in your building. You know, so I figured that I figured out the game, and I'm at the point now where I'm not dependent on state funding for my school to be successful. I have a lot of partnerships established, and I have a lot of resources in my school building to make sure we're successful whether we get cut or not, because we refuse to continue to feed the prison pipeline.
Wow. That's powerful right there. You went out and found all the resources. And I'm telling you that's incredible. And I like what you said, man. You know, there's an easier pipeline from the community to prison more than the community through education. And and it's crazy, in 2022 we're still talking about that. We're still fighting for the rights. One of my pet peeves is the first thing that gets cut is education, yet we find money for wars. We find money to send our young people out to fight wars that are really just from offices. And the education is the thing that suffers. But one thing you have taught us is that, hey, listen, there are more people who are willing to pour into the school system. My mother was a principal. She found somebody outside of the school money to provide everything that was necessary to happen. All right, so we have somebody says we can do all things. Another person said, yes, I'm an educator in the capital district area. I also believe that assessment should be used as growth tool to help us better serve scholars' needs. Absolutely. It's good to have assessments, but it's really that time where we need leaders that can raise our scholars beyond that classroom, beyond the funding, and be consistent in what they're doing.
You
What
know, when
have Yeah.
our school started to show the most success is when I stopped focusing on assessments. When I
Mm,
stopped focusing on assessments, we actually start showing growth. We actually had some of the highest gains in both math and literacy, because you know, for a lot of our families, education is a sixth priority.
yeah.
You know, food, shelter, safety, health, access to technology come first. And if you don't address those five other basic needs, you can never truly educate your community. So when
Yeah.
I started focusing more on addressing those five basic needs, my data started to have a positive impact. And I shifted away from just doing literacy and math, because at the end of the day, that's not what's going to take our communities to the next level.
Let's talk about those basic needs. What is the first basic need that each family needs to thrive in education?
So there are five, right? So there's food, shelter, safety, health, and access to technology. All five are equally important. You know, you can't have a child read a book on an empty stomach. You can't have a child focus on their homework in a poorly lit apartment, or having gun shooting happening outside their door or window, you know, and their PTSD levels are high, you know, focused on what's happening outside as opposed to what's happening in their home. You can't have children dealing with all these life's necessities and then expect them to be the best students in the world. You know, a lot of our times our children get into trouble not because they misbehave, but because that they're dealing with so much that education is really not the most important thing in their lives.
Wow, that's powerful, and you're completely correct. I mean, if you don't have an environment around you as your foundation before you get to school, it's hard to concentrate, because now you're thinking about even the people that are still at home and what they're dealing with at home. And have you found that shutting down school has hurt a lot of families, especially going virtual? And I know we're in the pandemic, but what has that done for the youth in your community?
You know, oddly, you know, a lot of people ask me because I was featured in the New York Times documentary. But Ali, I was dealing with these challenges before the pandemic. I've been living in pandemic conditions, and my school has been functioning in pandemic conditions before the pandemic.
Right.
The pandemic just exposed a lot of what I've been saying in the past, but a lot of the inequities have always existed. It's not because of the pandemic. So I'm comfortable in this world because I've dealt with the inequities all my life. And as an educator and as a principal in a school where the inequities have always existed, I'm able to function at a high level, because I'm able to adjust and do things that, people are just trying to figure out right now. I've been doing this for all my career, so when we're dealing with trauma, I've been dealing with trauma before the pandemic. When we're dealing with issues with food, I've been dealing with that before the pandemic. Technology issues, that's always we're always talking about the digital divide. This is not the new. The great thing is that the pandemic exposed it, and it allowed for more people to get involved and actually to see things a little bit different. And I was able to leverage it to be able to get a lot of the resources that we need. So, for example, right now, every single child in my school has a device and internet access, where before this pandemic, that was unheard of, right? You couldn't even get internet access. We were able to leverage a lot of the resources we needed to do to pretty much end the digital divide for our community.
That's powerful. So access to technology has been a challenge, but you've been able to overcome that challenge.
Yes, my hustle game is real, brother.
You
recently, I
listen, you
had
have to be, man.
recently I had Colin Kaepernick's organization through some laptops my way. you know, the elected officials. I was fortunate. I have a strong borough president who just left, Ruben Diaz Jr. And then I have a new incoming borough president, Vanessa Gibson, who are amazing at getting resources and helping the schools. And then we have Misha Porter, the chancellor. When you have all these people who are doing the job for the right reasons, it allows you to be able to fight these inequities.
Yeah.
We just got to keep pushing and hoping that we continue this work and not to get comfortable and go backwards. Because I don't want to go back to
Yeah.
what it used to be. I want to keep moving forward.
What are you telling your students? I noticed some students, they even today, they don't feel like they're worthy of greatness. They don't feel like they're worthy to achieve the highest goals. Some of them don't feel like they're worthy of getting straight A's or 100%. What do you tell these students from day to day to get their mindset, to shift their mindset towards greatness, towards success?
Well, our mascot is the Bengal tiger. And to be a Bengal tiger in our school, there's a lot of pride there. Our step team, our step dancers have been 6-time Bronx champions because they
Mm.
don't want, they want to do it the Bengal Tiger way. We teach our children when we play in basketball. Our kids can dribble between their legs because they're just growing a little bit faster than other children. And we
Yeah.
went 1 year 21-0 in basketball. Why? Because
Wow.
we believe that we could beat everybody and we're the best. That's the mentality you have to instill in your children is believe that you could be the best, and you'll be the best. And it's not about winning all the time. It's about doing what you can do. You compete against yourself, right? And if you could beat yourself, then you're a winner. And I teach my children. We use these 4 core values called ROAR, right? Because our mascot is a Bengal tiger, and our core values are ROAR, ROAR, responsibility, organized, always safe, and respectful. And this is what we instill in our children, and they gain this pride and respect for themselves and for others. That when you instill that in a young man that's coming into the school hungry, they grow and they develop into champions. And that's what we develop champions. But more than anything, we want to develop good citizens. I think the world doesn't spend enough time creating human beings, good human beings who are respectful, organized, always safe and responsible, and who, will hold the door open for an adult, will, say thank you when, given something. We teach them the values. And I think there's not enough energy spent in that. And then I spend a lot of energy also teaching civics. The children need to know where they come from,
Yeah,
who their borough president is. I used to
that's right.
hate the fact that they would go to New Jersey and they think they were in another country. You know, I would say, yo, you just crossed, to another state, but you're not in another country. So I
Yeah,
teach them civics. We teach them about the pledge. We teach them, different things. But we also respect their cultures as well. And then we do a lot of work around hip hop in the school. Because the culture around the school was created around hip hop. We're the
yeah,
birthplace of hip hop.
absolutely.
And then we have a large African population coming in, and we do a lot of work with the African community as well.
That's big time. I love it. I love it. And the core message there is believe. Teach them to believe. Um, you can watch the news all day, and it'll start to shape your belief that negativity is all over the place. And even with the crime rate, all over, it doesn't matter what state you go to. There's a state with a certain amount of crime rate, but if a youth can believe they can overcome, then they can survive and do great in the community. So congrats to your team, 21-0. That's powerful. That's
It
powerful.
also helped that I had two pretty much 6 footers on my team, man. 10-year-olds, both
Wow.
brothers. 10-year-olds. They were
Yeah.
6 foot tall, both of them. 10-year-olds. And
That's
and I and I
crazy.
I used to bring the birth certificate to show, so nobody could say that I was lying.
So they just have to stand under the basket and just
Oh, it was
toss it in.
crazy. We would pull them out at halftime, man. We would pull them out at halftime, and we would just, have them sit. I mean, they're really good kids.
Yeah.
The whole family's like 6'5" and up. So
We're dealing, especially in the time of sports and talent. You mentioned something about character, and how important is it to develop character? We have kids with talent, but there was this quote, and you saw I quoted it earlier: "Talent will get you where character can't keep you." How important is it for students to develop character?
if you talk to the business world right now, the one most marketable skill or the most marketable skills that you can have right now are soft skills. People just don't know how to interact with others. And I think that that's one of the biggest challenges when our youth go into jobs is if they don't know how to interact with people, and they don't know how to shut down the community when they go into the office, they're having a hard time. If they don't know how to be polite and respectful in the job, they're having a hard time. And a lot of our people are having challenges in the workforce because they don't want to take orders. They don't want to, listen to a boss or interact with a boss. We have to teach our children. It's not for you to be a follower. It's not for, but there are certain skills and certain things you have to be willing to learn in order to be successful in this world. And I think we don't spend enough time in character. And I think that what happens is when a child goes for an interview, and they're no longer a child, and they don't know how to communicate in that interview, if they don't know how to express themselves in the right way, they're just not going to get the job. And we just got to teach those soft skills that our community. One of the things that was a positive for me was in the military was the fact that I learned I learned to take orders, and I learned to be able to focus on things and not always overreact. And these are things that if I probably didn't go to the military, I would never have learned. But it made me a better person. And I think we don't spend enough energy and teaching those soft skills like the civics that I was talking about
That's
earlier
right.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those things, they take you a long way. If you go to a job and every time you're in the job, all you're doing is fighting and complaining, you're not gonna last too long in that job,
No, sir.
right? So you gotta figure those are the skills that we gotta work a little bit better on. And I was at a business meeting, and you know what they were talking about? They were talking about those are the skills that they're looking for now in their employees. It's people who can just take a simple order and just get the job done. Not somebody who's gonna be complaining or just not there for the right reasons.
Listen, that's 1,000 words right there. That is 1,000 words right there. Listen, character matters. And I'll be stressing this in the podcast going forward. We'll be stressing character of students and how to develop. We want to be a resource for teachers and principals. We want to make sure that, we add value to the people who are listening. One question is, how do you get your students to develop their self esteem and adapt a growth mindset? How do you begin that process? And I think you did speak to it earlier.
A lot of it is, we don't spend enough energy in having conversations with our youth. I think that the days of mentorship have died down a lot. I
Mm,
think we need to start bringing the mentorship back.
yes.
A lot of my skills and a lot of my was growing up with a father who had a strong character and who was a man who I model myself after. Actually, they're naming the street after him where we grew up, um, because of the work that he did. And I don't see a lot of that happening as much. I think we need to do a lot more of that. Having conversations with our youth, talking to them about what it is to be a positive light in your community, what it is to be a leader. There needs to be more conversations about that. Take somebody under your wing. Um, and bring them along. And it's
Yes.
not just men; it's women as well.
That's right.
Talk to young ladies. What it is to be, um, successful in life, and those things that they should be focusing on to be successful. I mean, we all lived our lives. We all can write books about ourselves. Let's give these books to the children and give them steps and ways that they can better their lives. But I think we just don't spend enough time
Hmm.
uh filling that brain with knowledge. And I think we need to start doing more of that.
Hey,
Yeah.
yeah. And with virtual opportunities, technology, and I do a boys to men every Monday. So I talk to a group of young men every Monday, and we go through the social and emotional learning. We go through accountability, what it is to be a man. You're growing from 9 to about 12, 15 years old. There's a lot of lessons in that. Just a simple thing I got to teach young men: hey, make your bed. Get up in the morning, go make your bed. Just simple things like that. What is the benefit of making your bed? So, uh, it's important. I believe I'm going to have to spend a whole podcast just on mentorship alone.
Just so real quick, that you mentioned Boys to Men. So 25 years ago, I started a program called Boys to Men in New York.
Hmm.
Right? It was basically what I did was there was what I noticed that the children were not graduating middle school because they didn't have father figures in their lives. So what I did was I got all the males in the school, and
Yes.
I had them adopt the children that didn't have fathers.
Mm.
And could you believe that from that year on, while that program had been in every year, 100% of the children would graduate
Wow.
just by doing that one simple step.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
our youth are not bad. Our youth are not bad. They just don't have the supports that they need to be successful. And some of that is purposeful, right? We still have to feed the prison system, right? we have to figure out as plumbers to dismantle that pipeline to
That's
prison,
right. Come on.
right? And if it means that we have to provide fathers for the children, then let's do something. You know what I'm saying? And I think that what you're saying is very important. Mentorship, I think, is very important. I know that if I didn't have the right people in my life throughout my life, I would probably not be here speaking to you the way we are talking right now.
Wow. That's powerful. And it looks like your cat needs mentoring now.
Yeah, it's my baby. That's my
Listen,
baby. That's the
I love it.
bodega cat. The
I
bodega cat.
love it. I
Yeah.
actually started a Instagram called Adventures of Mr. Furley from my sister's cat from back in the day. Mr. Furley has passed on, so now it's a cat, just a page dedicated to cats. So I love cats, man.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have things to keep your mind, positive and
That's right.
focused. So
Absolutely.
the cat keeps me always on my toes, man.
I'm
I
telling you.
love this little cat.
Well, listen, we're gonna have to get you back on, and I want to get some other men because we definitely need to talk about mentorship and how that can benefit each community. I think you're spot on right there. You've done great. I mean, I've spoken to another principal today that is raving about your leadership, raving about your impact. You have done a great impact for our community. So I personally want to thank you for what you're doing for our community. And even though it's local, it is making an impact worldwide. I want to let you know that because you are being a positive light in your corner is making a difference all over the world.
No, I
So I
appreciate that.
appreciate
At the end of the day, that guidance counselor who tried to steer me wrong.
yeah.
We every time we have success stories, I prove that guidance counselor wrong, and we just got to keep doing that because
Come on.
I'm pretty sure if I wasn't considered black or brown, I would have probably went straight to college. But we live in a world where that stuff still exists.
Yeah,
And we have to weed it out and make sure that we're educating and directing our communities in the right way.
absolutely. Well, everybody, I really hope that this was of impact to you. You can write it in the chat. Say, listen, this was a great impact. Let me know that you appreciate what was spoken here. We'd love for you to go to our YouTube channel, Shaping Your New Start. Subscribe there because that is where our education podcast is going to be going every time. We'll also be on the different podcasts, digital platforms after this. So you'll see us. Follow me at Dr. Phil 2 underscore on Twitter and Dr. Phil underscore 2. Follow me on Instagram. Let me put out your brand as well. Let me know. Tell me, where can people reach out to you?
Yeah. So on Instagram you can follow me at the Bronx Principal. Pretty easy. And Twitter it's Real Talk Torres. Um, or Torres Real Talk, one of the two. And it's on Twitter. And I'm usually I have a book coming out on ASCD. I don't know if you know ASCD. So I have a book coming out called The Sixth Priority. And basically it talks about how to address the 5 priorities that come before education. And I pretty much give you like tips and tricks of how to get resources for your school so that you're not using your school funds to pay for things that you can hustle and beg for and get, so that you don't wind up being part of the cycle of failure that exists in these
Listen, listen. Say less, man. I'm an assistant superintendent for 16 different schools. I'll be getting the book
schools.
because we are constantly looking at how we can get more resources for our students, for our schools. So listen, bring the book on. I'll bring you back on. We'll talk about the book. We'll promote that thing. Let's do it. Let's do it. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate your time and much love. And thank you, everybody, for joining in. Yes, somebody said it was impactful indeed. So you can share this YouTube video. You can share it out to anybody. Follow him on the Bronx at the Bronx Principal. Listen, he has a lot of followers. He can use more. I'm definitely looking at at what you're doing. I love the impact. And listen, I appreciate every little like you give me. The little people. That's I appreciate that. I appreciate that. All right, everybody. This is Shaping Your New Start Education podcast. I'm with my guest, the Bronx Principal, Louis Torres, and thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. Listen, let's take education beyond the classroom, everybody. Have a great night. This is when you shape your new start.